Hello, this is Frank, and we're now moving on to the Mississippi Hazmat Endorsement Test. This test is designed for commercial drivers who need to transport hazardous materials and must obtain the Hazmat endorsement on their CDL. It covers federal regulations for safely handling, documenting, and transporting dangerous goods on our highways. Let's get straight into the questions. What must be within the driver's immediate reach when the seatbelt is fastened? Hazardous materials shipping papers. These critical documents must always be accessible to you as the driver, even when properly secured in your seat, so that emergency responders can quickly identify what materials you're carrying if needed. Moving on. When you leave the cab, where must hazardous materials shipping papers be left? On the driver's seat or in the door pouch. This ensures that emergency responders can immediately find these vital documents if they need to respond to an incident while you're away from the vehicle. Next question. Where must required placards be displayed on a motor vehicle? On all four sides. This 360-degree visibility ensures that everyone, other drivers, emergency responders, and enforcement officials, can identify the hazards from any direction of approach. Let's continue. Which material requires placards for any quantity? Division 1. 1. Explosives. These are the most dangerous explosives, and even the smallest amount requires full placarding because of their extreme hazard potential. Time for the next question. When may the dangerous placard be used? For 1,001 pounds or more of 2 or more classes with no one class over 1,000 pounds. This is a special provision that allows you to use a single placard type when you're carrying multiple smaller quantities of different hazard classes that together exceed the threshold. Next up, how are bulk packages identified for hazardous materials? 4-digit ID numbers on orange panels, placards, or white square on point markings. These standardized identification methods help emergency responders quickly determine what materials are present in bulk quantities. Let's see what's next. What is the hazard class of gasoline? Class 3 Flammable Liquid. Gasoline is one of the most common flammable liquids transported, and it's important to know its proper classification for placarding and handling requirements. Here's another one. What is the hazard class of propane? Division 2. 1 Flammable gas. Propane is a compressed flammable gas that requires specific handling procedures different from liquid fuels like gasoline. Continuing on, what is the correct sequence of the basic description on shipping papers? ID number, proper shipping name, hazard class, packing group. This standardized sequence ensures consistency and helps prevent confusion when reviewing shipping documents. Moving on shipping papers, what does RQ indicate? Reportable quantity. This designation means the amount of hazardous material meets or exceeds the EPA's threshold for reporting releases to the environment. Next question. How must hazardous materials entries be identified on shipping papers? With an X or RQ in the HM column. This clear marking helps anyone reviewing the shipping papers quickly identify which items are regulated hazardous materials. Let's continue. Who must provide the emergency response telephone number on the shipping papers? The shipper. The shipper has the detailed knowledge about the specific materials and must provide a number where knowledgeable personnel can be reached 24/7 during transportation. Time for the next question. When must the emergency response telephone number be monitored? While the shipment is in transportation. Someone knowledgeable about the hazardous materials and emergency response procedures must be available to answer calls at any time the materials are being transported. Next up, how often must hazmat employees receive recurrent training? At least once every 3 years. This ensures that drivers and other hazmat employees stay current with regulations and safety procedures that may change over time. Let's see what's next. What federal requirement applies to drivers seeking a hazmat endorsement? Fingerprint-based TSA security threat assessment. This background check helps ensure that individuals transporting hazardous materials don't pose a security risk. Here's another one. When is a Class 9 placard required for domestic highway transport? When transporting Class 9 in bulk packages. Class 9 miscellaneous dangerous goods only require placards when shipped in bulk quantities for domestic transportation. Continuing on, you discover a leak of hazardous material while driving. What should you do first? Park safely, secure the area, and call for help. Your immediate priority is to prevent further danger by getting off the road safely and alerting authorities who can properly respond to the situation. Moving on. What is the rule for smoking during loading or unloading certain hazardous materials? No smoking with explosives 1, flammable gases 2, 1, or flammable liquids 3. These materials present extreme fire and explosion hazards, making any ignition source absolutely prohibited during handling. Next question. How far must you keep Division 1? 1 explosives from an open fire when parked? At least 300 feet. This significant distance helps ensure that heat or sparks from fires cannot reach these highly sensitive explosive materials. Let's continue. When must you stop at a railroad grade crossing? Whenever carrying a placardable amount of hazardous materials. This mandatory stop allows you to ensure no trains are approaching before crossing the tracks with dangerous cargo. Time for the next question. Which shipments generally require a written security plan? Placardable quantities of hazardous materials. Security plans help prevent the intentional misuse of hazardous materials and are required for significant quantities that could pose security risks. Next up, how should hazardous materials packages be blocked and braced? Secure to prevent movement in all directions. Proper securing prevents packages from shifting during transport, which could cause damage, leaks, or dangerous mixing of incompatible materials. Let's see what's next. What is the rule for loading poisons with foodstuffs? Do not load Class 6 poisons with food or feed. This segregation requirement prevents contamination of items intended for human or animal consumption. Here's another one. Which combination must never be loaded together? Acids with cyanides. When these materials mix, they can produce deadly hydrogen cyanide gas, making their segregation absolutely critical for safety. Continuing on. What is required during loading or unloading of a cargo tank? A qualified person must attend the vehicle at all times. This constant attendance ensures someone can quickly respond to any emergency and properly monitor the transfer operation. Moving on. What must drivers check before and during a trip with Hazmat? Closures, valves, and manholes are closed and there are no leaks. Regular inspection of these potential leak points helps prevent releases of hazardous materials during transportation. Next question. How do you use the Emergency Response Guidebook at an incident? Look up the UN or NA ID number to find the guide page. The 4-digit identification number quickly directs you to specific response guidance for that particular hazardous material. Let's continue. What is required for placard visibility? Placards must be clean, legible, and not covered. Maintaining clear visibility of placards ensures that their critical safety information can be read by everyone who needs it. Time for the next question. When must placards be removed from a vehicle? When no hazardous materials remain and the packaging is cleaned or purged. Keeping placards on an empty, cleaned vehicle could cause unnecessary emergency response or create confusion about the actual hazards present. Next up, who certifies the accuracy of the hazardous materials description on shipping papers? The shipper signs a certification. This certification makes the shipper legally responsible for ensuring all hazmat information is correct and complete. Let's see what's next. What is the minimum fire extinguisher rating when placards are required? At least 10 BC. This rating ensures the extinguisher can handle both flammable liquid fires, B, and electrical fires, C, that might occur with hazardous materials. Here's another one. If you must leave a vehicle carrying hazardous materials, what should you do? Park off the road if possible, secure the vehicle, and place warning devices. These steps help protect both your cargo and other motorists while you're away from the vehicle. Continuing on. For liquids, what capacity defines a bulk package? More than 119 gallons. This threshold distinguishes between smaller packages and bulk containers that have different regulatory requirements. Moving on. For solids, what net mass defines a bulk package? Greater than 882 pounds. This weight threshold for solids corresponds to the volume threshold for liquids in determining bulk packaging regulations. Next question. What wording must appear in the basic description for materials that present an inhalation hazard? The words inhalation hazard. This clear warning alerts everyone handling the shipment that special respiratory protection may be needed. Let's continue. What must drivers do about state and local route restrictions? Obey all route restrictions and permit or tunnel rules. Many jurisdictions have specific rules about where hazardous materials can travel, and compliance with all levels of regulation is mandatory. Time for the next question. Before fueling a vehicle transporting hazardous materials, what is required? Shut off the engine and do not smoke. These precautions prevent ignition sources from causing fires or explosions during the vulnerable fueling process. Next up, when carrying only non-bulk Class 3 flammable liquids, at what weight are placards required? At 1,001 pounds or more aggregate gross weight. This is the standard threshold for materials that don't require placarding in any quantity. Let's see what's next. What is the correct label for nitrogen compressed gas? Non-flammable gas 2. 2. Nitrogen is an inert gas that doesn't burn, so it falls into the non-flammable compressed gas category. Here's another one. Where may a vehicle with Division 1 explosives not be parked unattended? Within 300 feet of a bridge, tunnel, or building. These restrictions help protect critical infrastructure and occupied structures from potential explosive incidents. Continuing on. When do limited quantity packages generally not require placards for highway transport? When marked and prepared as limited quantity in non-bulk packages. Limited quantity provisions allow small amounts of certain materials to be transported with reduced regulatory requirements. Moving on. How must compressed gas cylinders be carried? Secured to prevent movement and protected from heat. Proper securing prevents valve damage while heat protection prevents dangerous pressure increases in the cylinders. Next question. What determines which placards are required? The hazard class and the quantity of the material. These two factors work together to determine whether placards are needed and which specific placards to use. Let's continue. Who is responsible for supplying required placards? The shipper provides placards. Since the shipper knows exactly what materials are being shipped, they must provide the appropriate placards to the carrier. Time for the next question. What is the condition requirement for placards? Placards must be in good condition and clearly legible. Damaged or faded placards can't effectively communicate hazard information and must be replaced. Next up, what must a driver know before operating a cargo tank with emergency shutoff systems? How to operate all emergency shutoff controls. In an emergency, you need to be able to quickly stop product flow, so understanding these systems before driving is essential. Let's see what's next. Which material requires placards for any quantity due to toxicity? Division 2. 3. Poison gas. These toxic gases are so dangerous when inhaled that even the smallest quantities require full placarding. Here's another one. What is the rule about loading detonators with certain explosives? Do not load detonators in the same vehicle with Division 1 explosives. Detonators could trigger the main explosive charge if they accidentally activate, so segregation is critical. Continuing on. What should a driver do if offered a package that is leaking? Refuse the package and do not transport it. Accepting leaking packages violates regulations and creates serious safety risks for you and others on the road. Moving on. Where must required emergency response information be kept? With the shipping papers. Keeping this information together ensures that all critical documentation is in one place during an emergency. Next question. What information must be shown near the basic description if a product is a marine pollutant at an RQ? The letters RQ must be entered. This notation alerts everyone that the material poses environmental risks and has specific reporting requirements if released. Let's continue. How should a driver verify placards at the start of each trip? Confirm the correct placards are in place, readable, and match the load. This pre-trip verification ensures you're displaying the right hazard information before entering the highway. And that completes this practice test. Great job working through these questions.